Hello there, Star Wars fans. Today we're going to be jumping into another fan fiction. This one, a highly requested What If the Senate Rejected the Empire in Revenge of the Sith. This will take place basically as Palpatine is giving his speech about reforming the Republic into the First Empire. We're going to start there, see what happens if the Senate were to, step in and just kind of say, no, we're not doing this. Now, I know there are political things that might not help make this all make sense, but we're just going to have fun with it. So sit back, relax, enjoy today's fan fiction, and of course, please do leave us a like and hit the subscribe button. Let's get right into it. The Chancellor stood in his Senate pod giving a speech. The Jedi Rebellion has been foiled. The remaining Jedi will be hunted down and defeated, he said. And as Palpatine continued, Padme sat in her own pod, and she began to know everything Obi-Wan had told her was right. Palpatine was the Sith Lord pulling the strings for both sides of the war. He was the leader of the Republic and the Separatists. This was his plan from the very start of everything. She looked back down at him, listening to his words once more. The attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed, but my resolve has never been stronger. In order to ensure the security and continuing stability, the Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. And Padme spoke up at that moment. Wait, she yelled from her Senate pod, and everyone, including Palpatine, turned to her. These are lies, she yelled, and I know the truth. Boos and confused chatter were growing in sound, so she knew that she had to continue quickly. Republic hero, Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi, informed me of a terrible truth. The Separatists were controlled by a Sith Lord above even Count Dooku, someone pulling all the strings, and Obi-Wan told me that Sith Lord is Chancellor Palpatine. The boos rose as she said Obi-Wan's name, but then quieted as she explained that Palpatine was controlling the Separatists. No one wanted to believe her, but now they wanted to at least hear what she had to say. Those familiar with the Jedi history know they have fought their own wars throughout their time protecting this Republic. Those wars were with the Sith, and the Sith have emerged at the heart of the Republic. Now, his plan is secure, and the leader of the Separatists stands before you. He is trying to turn this Republic into an empire of his own. The Senate had no direction right now. All of them were confused, scared, and doing whatever was necessary to keep their seats, following anyone who seemed to be in front at the moment. So when the cheering began to support Padme, others joined in, and the sound was as loud as when Palpatine was just speaking. Eventually, Mas Amedda, the vice chair to Palpatine, yelled, "Order! Order!" and allowed Palpatine to speak up. These accusations are a clear act of treason, as Senator Amidala has been a great friend of the Jedi for many years. This deeply saddens me, but alas, we will hold a fair vote. We will reconvene in 30 minutes, and you must choose between these two options. Elect me as Emperor of a new empire, or vote for a new Chancellor of the Republic. And the Senate broke up. During those 30 minutes, across the galaxy, Anakin had eliminated every single Separatist leader. He stood on Mustafar, waiting for someone to tell him what to do next. His master, Padme, anyone. He felt so alone, so broken, not sure of what was going on around him. And in the Jedi Temple, Yoda and Obi-Wan had discovered the tragedy of what had happened, what had taken place here. Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan's best friend, his brother, had led the 501st into the temple and slaughtered the Jedi. And Palpatine, the Sith Lord, was his new master. After those 30 minutes were up, the Senate voted, and the vote was tallied. Palpatine eventually rose up in the center pod to speak, a grim look on his face. "It is as bad as I feared," he said. "The Jedi have truly infiltrated the Senate, and many of you are still loyal to those traitors. I have given my life to this republic, and in response, these are the results." A screen flashed, showing that Palpatine lost the vote to become Emperor, 60% to 40%. He spoke again, an unfortunate but necessary test to find the true traitors among the Senate. 40% of you will get to stay here in your seats. But as for those who voted against me, voted against peace, it is clear now that you are part of the treasonous Jedi plot. Do not resist what has become a necessity. Any resistance will be met with the appropriate reaction. And through the doors to every pod of every senator that voted against Palpatine came 3 clone troopers. Padme looked around and saw a Rodian senator protest, and then horror filled her body as the Rodian was shot 3 times as he fell out of his pod. Padme knew this senator. It was Anakin Far, and his minor resistance had been met with immediate execution. "Do not let that be you," said Palpatine. "Go peacefully, and you will simply be arrested for your treason." And so, Padme did, along with Bail Organa and many other senators. But as they walked out, at least 15 other senators were shot and killed by the loyal to Palpatine clones. As Padme was escorted out of the Senate building and onto a prepared prison transport, she couldn't help but think, had Palpatine prepared something like this? Was there anything he wasn't prepared for? This contingency has worked so well in his favor, but he seems to be underestimating one person: Anakin. Anakin will not stand for the arrest of his wife, his pregnant wife. Obi-Wan and Yoda were leaving the temple and gathering information as best they could from the HoloNet, while still staying hidden. They were now completely out of contact with Bail Organa, and they feared the worst. Could Palpatine have killed the senators as well? Obi-Wan asked. Only if stand up to him, they did, Yoda replied, and then it flashed across the screen. 600 treasonous senators arrested, Obi-Wan read aloud, and he continued on. And Palpatine has still declared himself Emperor, stating the Jedi and the Senate corruption needed to be handled swiftly, even with resistance from the Jedi, even with resistance from the Senate. He's still taken over. Yoda replied, "One step ahead, he always is. But with heavy support in the Senate, the Republic can be rebuilt if the Emperor is killed." "Yes, it is possible, but we still need to find Anakin," Obi-Wan said. "Free Senator Amidala along with Senator Organa, and find us, Skywalker will." On Mustafar, Anakin spoke to a hologram of Palpatine. "The Separatists are gone, my master. What is our next move?" he asked. "My introduction of a new empire did not go as planned. It appears many more senators than anticipated sided with the treasonous Jedi. They were promptly arrested or executed," Palpatine replied. Anakin could not help himself and asked, "What about Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right?" Palpatine took a moment and then said, "Senator Amidala was at the heart of the uprising. She was arrested without resistance. Anakin, she cannot be trusted. When have I been wrong before? I'm afraid to restore peace. It must be me or her." Anakin replied, "I understand, Master. I'll be back to Coruscant soon." And the call was ended. He did understand. He understood more than ever. He had to choose between Palpatine and Padme, and it wasn't even a debate. Palpatine stood in his office after the call ended. He knew who Anakin would choose. Despite everything Palpatine could give Anakin, he would still choose Padme. He would always choose Padme. That duo was a nearly unbreakable bond, and with Padme still in the way, there was nothing he could do. Nothing he could do to stop Anakin from helping her. So Palpatine opened a new channel and called the prison ship escorting Senator Amidala. A clone answered with the typical, "Yes, sir." And Palpatine commanded the worst. "Kill every senator aboard your shuttle. Do it now," said Palpatine. "Yes, my lord," the clone said before hanging up. Aboard the shuttle, Padme watched the clone closely as he went to take a message. And as he ended the call, the clone turned to a human senator on the other side of the shuttle and shot him without any hesitation. Then turned to another and shot him. And then another. Among the 12 senators aboard this transport, 3 were killed, and the clones had no intention of stopping. Another, the senators in a frenzy screaming around Padme, and the blasters turned to Padme when suddenly the shuttle halted in the air, and the clones fell backwards, one of their shots missing Padme by nearly a foot. And as the clones began to get to their feet, the side door blew open, crushing one of the 4 clones against the wall. The others turned to the opening and began firing. Blaster bolts bounced back, killing 2 of them, and Obi-Wan Kenobi jumped in, cutting down the final clone, who was the pilot of the ship. "Obi-Wan," Padme gasped. "We must hurry. We will not have long before reinforcements realize what has happened." And a small green Jedi leapt into the open door, taking a seat behind Kenobi as he grabbed the controls. Yoda had halted the ship in mid-air, and now the 2 Jedi were on a rescue mission inside of the shuttle. And the shuttle shifted away from the prison, back towards the Jedi Temple. The senators went their separate ways to hide on their own planets, including Bail Organa, who promised to stay in touch, but Padme stayed with Obi-Wan and Yoda. "Padme," Obi-Wan said, "we must find Anakin. He has been corrupted by Palpatine, by the dark side. He caused the destruction inside the temple." Padme had been through so much in the past couple days, and walking inside the temple, seeing the destruction, the lightsaber cuts on killed Jedi, it broke her. Padme was crying when her comlink beeped, and she wiped away the tears, turning to Obi-Wan and Yoda. "It's Anakin," she said. Anakin entered the Coruscant atmosphere, waiting, hoping for Padme to answer his call. He didn't expect her to, as she was just arrested, but he had to try. And as he flew, the Senate building and the Jedi Temple came into sight, and now shockingly, Padme answered the call. "Padme, what happened? Are you safe?" "Palpatine informed me that you were arrested. I'm here to rescue you," Anakin said frantically. And Padme replied, "Anakin, I've been rescued. Obi-Wan and Yoda are with me. They brought me to the temple after saving me from an execution attempt ordered by Palpatine. Anakin, you cannot trust him, Anakin. He's using you. Come to us. Come to your friends. Please, we can help you." And Anakin didn't know what to think. Palpatine tried to actually kill Padme? And then his mind flashed to the countless assassination attempts on Padme's life over the years, and it clicked. Palpatine was always on the top of those. He was always trying to kill her. He knew it would push Anakin to the point of no return in the dark side, if he eventually did. And she was always one of his biggest obstacles inside the Senate. Anakin was lost in thought and found himself landing his ship at the temple. He had to see Padme, even if she was with Obi-Wan and Yoda. He sprinted up the stairs and entered the temple. There she was. "Padme," he yelled, and she came running to him. Through everything, she still loved him. Obi-Wan and Yoda watched with caution and began slowly approaching as well. Obi-Wan opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, a loud cackle filled the halls. From behind Anakin, Palpatine and 20 clone troopers entered and spread out. "Good, my friend, good. Too predictable. The 2 Jedi survivors and the Senate traitor all in one place. Lord Vader, this is your chance. You must see that she has been against us this entire time. She has chosen her side, chosen the side of war. Join me, Anakin. Stay with me, and we can embrace the dark side, bring peace to this galaxy. Padme was stumbling backwards now, fumbling for words. Anakin, how could you? I love you, how could you bring them here? Obi-Wan and Yoda ignited their lightsabers for battle. And at the center of everything stood Anakin. He didn't want this fight. He didn't want Palpatine here. He didn't want Obi-Wan or Yoda here. Not the clones, not anything except for Padme. All he wanted was Padme. He would kill everyone in this room just to finally be alone with her. But Palpatine was thinking the same. He had created a false sense of security in Anakin, as if he was actually necessary. In reality, Palpatine had realized a bit ago that this duo of Anakin and Padme would forever stand in his way of becoming Emperor unless they were killed right here, right now, and he had the upper hand. And as Anakin prepared to launch an attack on everyone, he heard two words come out of Palpatine he had heard just not long ago. Do it. The clones turned to Padme and started firing at her, and as Palpatine turned to Anakin, grabbing him with the Force, igniting his lightsaber, and approaching. As all of this began to happen, Obi-Wan and Yoda stood watching, waiting for an opportunity. The history of the Sith was to destroy each other from within, and once again it was about to happen. Both of these Sith wanted different things, and they would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. They'd become blind to the Jedi in this scenario. As the clones began to fire, Obi-Wan pulled Padme to him super quickly and began blocking the blaster bolts, hurling debris from the temple at the clones to knock them down. And as Palpatine lifted Anakin in the air and prepared to stab him, Yoda threw his saber into the side of Palpatine, causing him to drop Anakin and turn to Yoda. Anakin didn't hesitate. He ignited his own saber and swung at the head of Palpatine. The head fell to the ground, and the remaining clones looked over and stopped firing as they were shocked. Obi-Wan shoved them all against the wall, killing them or knocking them out, and Anakin now stood motionless. After everything he'd done, every Jedi he'd killed, it was still the Jedi that saved him and his wife. He was filled with guilt, filled with sadness, confusion. But why had it taken the Jedi so long to see this? So long to save them? That was all he ever needed. But all that mattered now was that it was over. He walked to Padme. Anakin thanked Obi-Wan and Yoda for saving them, but he was still distracted, not sure of his path. But he knew that his path must be separate from the Jedi, separate from the Sith, separate from it all. He was going to kill himself if he kept this up. He had to get away. And the two Jedi agreed. In fact, Yoda and Obi-Wan also didn't have much intention of rebuilding the Jedi at this moment. They had been taken from within, been attacked and destroyed from within the Republic and from within the Jedi Order. They would let themselves go off to meditate, to feel the Force, to figure things out each on their own paths. The Republic was no longer protected by the Jedi, instead only by the loyal, battle-hardened, experienced clone troopers. Bail Organa became Chancellor, as most of the Senate still wanted the Republic. They just weren't sure what was going on. When the Emperor had taken over, they needed someone to lead them, someone to take them out of the confusion, and Bail Organa would be the guy. Anakin and Padme on their own path, away from everything. Anakin away from the Jedi, away from the Sith. Padme away from the politics that had controlled her entire life. The two attempted to do everything they could to restore their marriage, restore their love. Padme had a tough time getting through the countless acts of horror that Anakin had committed. But eventually they would, and eventually they would raise their children, hidden away. Not trained in the Force, at least not right away, as Anakin and Padme just wanted a peaceful life, away from everything. That's where we're going to end the story. Let me know what you thought. I need to take it down different paths sometimes, I know. but Palpatine is truly kind of the center of everything. So it's hard to avoid fighting Palpatine and kind of just, if there was many other scenarios in Star Wars, Palpatine would have lost. He needed Anakin. Anakin was the key. But in the end here, Anakin, Yoda, Padme, Obi-Wan, they beat him. So let me know what you thought. I had fun writing this one. I always have a blast making these. They're so much fun. So let me know what you thought. Yeah, thanks everybody. And I'll see you in the next video.